Welcome everyone. Again, we're trying to wait for some additional folks to join us. I'm Jennifer Dina. We'll be hosting today and moderating our discussion. We just started record so that we can distribute our recording out to everyone who is joining us today. And again, we will be taking questions from you all. So please think about things that you might like to ask our panelists. And we'll be getting to our intro fairly soon. So thanks. Great. I've seen a couple more folks join. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience as we wait for everyone to sign on this morning or afternoon or evening, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your participation and look forward to getting to our dialogue very soon. I'll give it about a minute or so, and then I'll do a formal intro and we'll get right to our speakers. Thanks. All right, I'm gonna kick us off so we can get to the meat of our discussion today. And let's get started. So welcome again. My name is Jennifer Dina. I'll be your host today and moderator. Thank you for signing on to Global Food Security and Regenerative Agriculture, Cultivating Success with Bottom-Up Innovation. I am the membership director at Grow Further, and so I oversee our donor relationships as well as our organizational partnerships. And Grow Further is the host of the event today. And if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a Seattle-based nonprofit that creates ways for farmers, scientists, and people around the world to work together in pursuit of global food security. And as part of our mission, we aim to inform and engage the public on topics related to global food security and specifically the benefits of investing in agricultural innovation. And so today we are really excited to have two experts in the field of agriculture with us. Dr. Peter Kelly, he's the founder and visionary behind Grow Further. He was formerly a professor of agricultural and international development economics. And we also have our special guest today with us, Dr. Ruth Oniang'o, a global advocate for sustainable development and food security, founder of Rural Outreach Africa. She's also the editor-in-chief of the African Journal of Agriculture, Nutrition, and Development. And with over 4 decades of experience, she has made such a significant contribution to research, policy development, and advocacy in Africa and beyond. So thank you, Ruth, for joining us. We're excited to have you. As I said earlier, we will leave time for questions. So please think of things that inspire you to ask our panelists as we're going through the dialogue today. I hope to get to many of them. And so let's set the stage for today's discussion. There's so many facts that are thrown our way in our daily lives, but just pause and think about these. There are some really daunting facts about global food security. We know that over 800 million individuals suffer from undernourishment, and 1/3 of the global population are malnourished, particularly children. And in light of population growth and climate change, investment in innovation, we know for food systems is crucial. We also know the demand for food globally is projected to grow by over 50% by the year 2050. And in addition to those stark details, the world also faces soil degradation, which highlights the importance of regenerative agriculture. And this approach builds robust soils with increased organic matter, enabling the growth of productive and nutritious crops. And I know Dr. Oniang'o has lobbied for healthy soils for many years, so hopefully we can touch on that in a moment. But if you're like me, when you hear data like that, it brings me to a personal place, right? I'm a mom, and I think of children not having access to nutritious food, their trajectory in life, their ability to experience joy, to fight off infection and disease. And then after I conceptualize the data that way, I move to a place where it's, what can I do? How can I get involved? What are others doing in this space? And so that's my own personal way of dealing with the data. And everyone on this call probably has a way of conceptualizing it. But my next step is, what is being done? What are angles that can help solve this issue? And so today we're actually going to touch on a couple of points about how you can help or make a meaningful contribution, and then also discuss one angle to help this issue. And our speakers are going to delve into the topic of bottom-up approaches for agricultural innovation and what that means, and exploring how grassroots initiatives can play a pivotal role in supporting global food security. So let's get started. And I'd love to begin our conversation with opening statements from both of our panelists. So Dr. Kelly, why don't you kick us off?
All right. Well, thank you everyone for coming, and for the staff who organized this this webinar. I'm Peter Kelly. My background is an agricultural and development economist, and the founder of Grow Further. Grow Further basically exists to address two related problems. One is that the world is facing climate change as well as long-standing issues of malnutrition and rural poverty. And innovation is essential just to keep up with the effects of climate change on agriculture. There are some innovations that the private sector can fund if the intellectual property can be easily protected. But there's other things like crop rotation where that's very difficult. And if the risk is relatively low, government can do it. But if it's both high risk and hard to protect IP, then it falls to the nonprofit sector. And right now that means a couple of major foundations which have stepped up in this area. But sometimes some of the smaller projects, or that don't happen to fall within their agendas, sometimes get overlooked. So it can be very difficult for scientists in developing countries with small and innovative ideas to move those forward. And the other problem that we're addressing is that it's very difficult to get involved in the future of food security as an individual. If you want to support the future of healthcare, there are lots of medical research charities that you can donate to and volunteer for and so on. In food security, it's easy to get, at least in the United States, easy to get involved in food banks and other shorter term solutions. But as far as the long-term future of food security, it's very difficult to engage without being a full-time professional. So what we basically do at Grow Further is connect people and ideas for a food secure future. So specifically, we put out open-ended grant announcements seeking the best ideas from agricultural scientists around the world working on issues of climate change, farm income, and nutrition. And then we select the ones that farmers are not only interested in adopting, but that also have the potential to be adopted at scale. And then engage our donor members who come from a wide diversity of backgrounds in the process of evaluating those and monitoring those projects. So that's a little bit about me and about Grow Further.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. I appreciate that. Dr. Oniang'o, can you make an opening statement? And I'd love to hear from you about what really is a bottom-up approach in your opening statement. I'd love just to kind of start with that maybe, and what you're seeing on the ground, right? You're in Kenya, you're doing work there. Can you give us an update from what you're seeing with respect to global food security there as well? Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for inviting me to this session. And let me also start by wishing you a Happy New Year. And to say that this term, bottom up, in Kenya, it means something different. And I'm sure if there are Kenyans listening, I'm sure they're probably smiling and laughing maybe. But bottom just means being at the bottom, grassroots, really. It just means grassroots. And I've spent the better part of my professional career and even way before that, concerned about food because I meant to be a medical doctor until I discovered that, there's so much that one could do to help livelihoods and help the body, human health, just by feeding properly. And at that time I was growing up, it was mostly our diverse indigenous food basket, which we were feeding on. And as I've observed things over the years, they have changed, and each generation comes up with different ideas. We come up with different terminologies, and we think people are being better fed, and we are getting rid of hunger, and we are not. And then you see malnutrition, and you see children you don't even want to look at, and one just feels like, this is a world scandal. We are producing more food, and we have better methods of distributing, and clearly something is wrong, and why do we continue to have these problems? So it's not as if nothing has happened, but things are happening. But the more good things happen, the more bad things happen for many more people. So I've always felt, I reached a stage where I felt that we were not involving the so-called beneficiaries enough. The people we purport to help, the people we come out and we want to assist. And those of us who are educated, we come to the ground as if we have the answers and do this and do that. You come back like after you go a year later and nothing has changed. So it's unfortunate that it's just at this stage, many more people, many more organizations, many more people concerned are realizing that, look, you have to involve the very people you want to help. They too have ideas. They have survived in this situation for so long. And, it's not you who is going to come with all the answers. But at the same time, for me personally, I feel like I've become the Ruth I am, a better person, because I also became humbled, and I decided also to learn, so it's a two-way situation, and give and take, and respect for each other, and realizing that there's a lot indigenously, a lot at the grassroots level. We may not document it, but we need to, which we can also learn from. And when you have that kind of environment, it's a lot easier to actually realize some results. Yeah. So as a professional who did food and nutritional sciences in the US and then in Kenya, and I've now traveled across Africa, and I've just fallen in love with trying to do what I can while I can, and I'm even busier retired than before, and and also sharing globally, saying that we can do this together, actually. Yeah. Thank you so much, Jen.
Thank you, Dr. Oniang'o. Such a wealth of knowledge. We'll never let you retire because you have so much insight that is so valuable. Dr. Kelly, how does your organization, how does Grow Further view the bottom-up approach that Dr. Oniang'o just described? And have you supported any initiatives, or will you in the future using this type of approach?
Right. Well, at Grow Further, we do not have a we do not have a technically specific top-down strategy. We have some very broad goals around helping smallholder farmers adapt to climate change and improve income and nutrition. And then we seek ideas from agricultural scientists in developing countries. Typically a team of both natural and social scientists with innovative approaches to addressing those issues. Typically, the strongest proposals will almost always engage farmers. So, for example, we're funding a Bambara groundnut breeding project in Ghana, and the first step of this project is to go out and ask the farmers what they want. Because if you don't ask, you're just guessing, and you're probably guessing wrong. So in this case, In this case, you might guess that the farmers want higher yields or shorter cooking time. For Bambara nuts are a kind of bean, so they can take a while to cook. But when I went out into the field myself and talked to some of the women who grow this crop, what they said is the most important thing is short maturity, because the men's plots get the first dibs on the plowing equipment, and the women's plots get planted late, and they want a crop that can mature within the growing season. So that was just me. We have a whole team of social scientists that's talking to hundreds of farmers and getting some more systematic data. And then we'll keep the farmers engaged throughout the project. This is a participatory plant breeding project. So that's an example. And this Bambara groundnut is an indigenous crop in Africa, but it has not received the kind of research attention that it deserves. There actually aren't any commercial varieties in Ghana or elsewhere, and this project aims to develop the first one. So that's an example of our sort of our bottom-up approach. I would call it an approach rather than a strategy.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Dr. Oniang'o, you have long advocated for community-based solutions. I remember the first time I met you, we had this very conversation and we talked about this, which I loved. Can you share some success stories or examples where grassroots initiatives have made a tangible impact on food security?
It's difficult to share anything successful because we are still experiencing food insecurity. Yeah. But all I know is that, for example, when I went to the ground, as an academic, and I started to observe what was going on, and I was doing applied research, I realized that the families were surviving because the women were working so hard. The women had their small plots, they had growing vegetables, and they were growing seasonal crops. They were growing tubers, they were going to look for honey. They were going to look for herbs in the forest, but with the climate change and also with the destruction of the environment, a lot of those resources are disappearing. But in terms of people just taking care of themselves, they do, but repeatedly with the climate impacts, when you have drought for a long time, people then move from one place to another, and they go to where relatives are, and they are going to look for food or to look for water. But in terms of research that has happened, we have many that I could quote, but many of these, unfortunately, they come while the funding is there. Maybe it's a 5-year funding. The funding is there, it is integrated. I know a wonderful project I always used to quote, it was going on in Tanzania. It was all integrated and it had great results. But guess what? As soon as it ended after 5 years, it's hard to find anything left of it, or government comes and say, we have a World Bank, it has decided to do this for us, it's going to have a dairy project for farmers. And very well, farmers will want cows and dairy and so on, and so long as those who are working on it, they are being paid, they are around, things are going well. But as soon as they leave, things have changed, So when I started my work with not so much funding, and I've never really had a lot of funding, I think our biggest investment is as human beings who are there on the ground, and they know that we are going to stay with them. We are going to stick with them. We are going to help find answers to the problems they have. We are not like foreigners who will come and disappear, and then you decide to do whatever you want. We say we're just here, but if I bring you my visitors, I'll bring them, but I'll stay here even as they go. Whatever they do for you, I'll make sure that you're actually using it properly. So I think it's a change. We just have to change. It has to be a change of paradigm. We have to change the way we do things, and we have to appreciate that human behavior is not that easy. the other thing I realized that, yes, I'm here coming to talk about food, coming to talk about your children who don't look good. And I could see that the children were malnourished. And then this particular community, they told me, don't worry about our children. We're taking care of them. We want dairy cows. Can you bring us dairy cows so that we can use it to get milk? And at the same time, we can use it to get milk to feed our children, but we can also sell it to actually get incomes. So it takes quite a bit of time investment. You have to have a passion for what you want to do. Be ready for anything. Put your ears on the ground. There were so many times I wanted to give up, but I survived, because at the end of the day, you will actually see some success somewhere. Not everything, not the whole community will have succeeded, but you'll find some hope somewhere, something which will tell you, no, this is okay, it's worth pursuing. And then eventually you find that they are adopting. And that, for me, most lately happened with trying to promote soybean growing in Western Kenya. But they just didn't want to grow it. It takes too long to cook. It tastes different from the legumes they are used to. But right now, they have found their own way of cooking those soybeans. When the harvest of the grain is not good, they are preparing it. And it's something I've seen with my own eyes now. So you just have to be there for the long haul, and you don't give up. And I keep telling even you guys, Jennifer, come to the village and let's see what we can do, and also let's enjoy ourselves. You just make it a bit of fun.
Thank you, Dr. Oniang'o. I am definitely, it's on my wish list in life is to come and visit you. And I will honor and do that. I will. I want to see your work firsthand. Dr. Kelly, let's segue over to you. And Dr. Oniang'o did a great job of describing some, grassroots initiatives. And so are there any that inform Grow Further and how you kind of inform your strategy of your organization? Could you share a little bit on that?
Well, yeah, lots and lots of things. The agricultural science didn't actually exist as a formal discipline until a few centuries ago. So everything was basically grassroots. All of the technology that enabled ancient China to be food secure was more or less grassroots, with some exceptions like government-built irrigation systems. More recently, Grow Further has been inspired by the success of the Rotary Foundation and the March of Dimes, which are grassroots organizations that raised funds and took initiative towards the development of a polio vaccine. And we have nearly eradicated polio. So if something similar could be done in agriculture, which is what Grow Further is obviously trying to do, then that could make a really big difference in society. Another example that was just in an obituary a couple of days a couple of weeks ago in the New York Times, and also in our newsletter, was Yacoba Sawadogo in Burkina Faso, who developed a regenerative agriculture technique for dryland farming, basically digging little pits in the soil to prevent water from running off and improve the productivity of crops under drought conditions. And we're hoping that some of our projects, including the Bambara groundnut project, some of the projects that we're funding, become the next big grassroots initiative. The Bambara groundnut is it has a lot of advantages. It's an indigenous crop that's part of the traditional food system. It's nutritious. It fetches a high price in the local market. It contributes to regenerative agriculture by being drought tolerant and putting nutrients back into the soil. It contributes to women's livelihoods, etc. It just needs a little bit of It just needs a little bit of attention from researchers to take it to the next level.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Dr. Oniang'o, based on your experience, and we'd love to hear about what inspired you to start Rural Outreach Africa. What advice do you have for individuals or organizations looking to contribute to grassroots agricultural innovation or food security? We'd love to kind of hear about how you started your organization and then give us some advice, and we want to take from you today something.
Thank you, Jennifer. But
Yeah.
let me talk about the Bambara nut, the Bambara groundnut, which I found you guys working on in West Africa. You know, in Kenya here, it's mostly grown and consumed in Western Kenya. And it has a unique flavor, but for people from Western Kenya, it's a much loved legume, and we still grow the traditional type. And apart from all its attributes, which Peter has talked about, you know, you just tell the men that it's good for you, you know, then they'll eat it and they'll promote it, you know. It's known for that, just to really for men's health. That's what we know it for, that Bambara nut, yeah. But in terms of many other things I've done, and when I went to Western Kenya, I had been going all over Kenya, doing research, going with the students, mostly because I wanted to know more about my own country, as I'd done my degree work first and second in the US. You know, I had gone there when I had just finished high school. So I wanted to come back and get to know more about Kenya. And that took me to different parts of Kenya. But I had not really done much in Western Kenya, where I was born. So I was lucky to come across someone, a donor who had some funding, because I was on a committee which was working with him. And he said, Ruth, you know, what can we do for you? And I said, please, just enable me to go back to my own community. I need to understand them and I need to see what I can do. So I took on this action research, and it is a place which had been very fertile, highly productive, producing all kinds of crops. Western Kenya is bimodal, it is high potential. The soils were always good. And in 1974, they started sugarcane growing, sugarcane planting, a big company. And anywhere where you plant sugarcane, clearly is fertile soil and the weather is good. And all of a sudden, just after like 6, 7, 10 years, we started to see, you actually visibly, you could just see that the families were now hungry. The women were struggling to feed their families or to keep food for year round, you know, and they were now beginning to do trading. Children were beginning to be neglected. There was obvious malnutrition. I used to enjoy visiting schools, primary schools and nursery schools, especially, to see the kids, and you could just see clearly the children were not doing well. So that's when I then got funding to do this action research. And then it just confirmed many of the things that the hypothesis I had come up with. And families were struggling to just keep food available for 4 months, you know, and the rest of the year, they were just struggling. And most of the, unlike what government policy was saying, they actually were putting the whole land under sugarcane. And because it was in the name of the men, the land was in the name of the men. And so the women were not left with anything to grow food for the family. So that had not been the intention. So now, after I found all this and I confirmed it, I said, then what do I do? So what? So that's when I started Rural Outreach program. You know, I just registered the organization, and I had enjoyed my work going to the field, you know, and seeing what was going on and working with the people, and also understanding my own culture much better. And that's how I started the Rural Outreach program, you know, and the rest is just history. And then very quickly you discover that it's not just about food, yes, you go with food. I always say food first. Whatever we do, you must eat. But then, women's education, all these concepts are now coming up, gender issues coming up, and land rights, and what do you do? Water. But at the end of the day, it's just food first. So I started in terms of projects. I started with water. I started with water because at that time, water was not easily accessible. It was not clean. Children were really suffering from infections, diarrhea, and so on. Women going long distances, and water is good because everybody needs water. Water is life, and water is a good way of getting the community to come around, even when they have other differences. You bring them around water, and from water, then you discuss other issues. What else can we do? So that's what really inspired me. And up to now, I still just connect to that community. So in case one wants to do it, you have to be prepared to be in for the long haul. You have to make friends with the people you are going to work with. You have to be a lover of people. It takes time. You have to be ready to be disappointed. And it's not just money only, it's the time, the amount of time you put in. You have to have people that you can work with, you trust, yeah, especially, and I've had people come in I've invited people, and they have also invited themselves to come in from the US. I've had people coming from Germany, some from Australia, just come to the community. And I like young people, especially when they come. I had a young man from Germany, and then a young lady from the USA. They just went and just engrossed themselves in the community and started doing everything else with the community. And people like to see that, that you can leave a lasting impact, and you can also leave some lasting change, and you can actually forge friendships also. So it's possible to do it. And, right now the world is global. We have friends all over the place, and just make sure you are able to know someone. That way it's easier for you to get adjusted. Yeah.
Thank you. We can learn so much from you in such a short time. So thank you for that answer. Dr. Kelly, do you have any calls to action for folks here on this webinar? How can someone get involved in your particular organization or involved in general? Would love to hear from you on that, and just elaborate on what Ruth said about being in it for the long haul. Start with that on Grow Further. What are your plans, and then how can someone engage with your organization?
Yeah, we're definitely in this for the long haul. So agricultural research to begin with is a long-term approach to addressing food security. It takes time for research to show results and for farmers to adopt those results and so on. But it has a track record of being highly effective in the long term. And then on top of that, we have a larger vision to engage individuals and other stakeholders in support of that research beyond those who have been engaged in the past. So agricultural research in developing countries is primarily funded by governments and major foundations, with some exceptions like the Gates Foundation, the same places as would have been the case decades ago. And we are looking to expand that and create opportunities for individuals, smaller companies, et cetera, to engage in that work. And obviously that takes some time because some people are very aware of food security issues, and others are accustomed to making large donations. And finding the overlap between those groups is the challenge. And it takes a while to build those relationships and so on. So yeah, we're definitely in this for the long haul.
Thanks. And can you talk about how to get involved then with your organization and what the different ways you can do that are?
Yeah, so we look to create meaningful engagement opportunities, basically regardless of what your background may be. So for food security professionals, you can be a peer reviewer and that type of thing. If you're a donor member who does not have a background in food security, there are programs like this webinar, for instance, and other programs that are for members only, where you can learn more and then actually look at applications. It really expands your mind to see all of these applications. We got 700 applications in response to our first grant announcement. All sorts of interesting ideas. And so Einstein started out his career in the patent office looking at all sorts of innovations, and I'm sure that was important to his later success. So anyway, there's educational and engagement opportunities for people with different backgrounds. Many of our members are actually from developing countries and can provide cultural as well as technical perspectives on our programs. And then we also engage companies and institutions of various kinds. So we have companies that don't necessarily have their own agricultural research giving program, or we can also help them build an employee engagement program around this, so that employees are learning and engaged in really meaningful work around the future of food security. And we partner with other organizations. One of those partnerships is the VAX Champions program. The VAX stands for the Vision for Applied Crops and Soils. This is a new program from the State Department, which honors Grow Further and 7 other organizations, most of which are very large companies like IBM and Catholic Relief Services, for their work in basically promoting regenerative agriculture and indigenous crops in agriculture in Africa, that is. So we're part of that. A longer term, we cannot do this alone. There needs to be an entire sector of agricultural research charities that have a public face, that are doing fundraisers in every small town. I mean, just like we have in medical research in the United States right now. That's what's basically needed in agricultural research to really ensure a food secure future for the long term. We can't just rely on government or on a couple of major foundations to get this done. We really need everybody involved, everybody contributing their ideas. And Grow Further is working to make that happen.
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate that's a great answer. All right. Well, I do want to leave some time for questions from our audience here, and please submit them now if you haven't already, but I'd love to kind of start with some of them that I'm seeing here. Let's see. And this one is for Dr. Oniang'o. You mentioned your long career and the challenges of behavior change. What lessons have you learned that we could utilize to promote behavior change in transformed communities?
That's a difficult one. It's so difficult. I'm telling you, so difficult to change people. You know, when I went out, I thought, if you have a good idea and you show, for farmers especially, you know, seeing is believing. You demonstrate what is good here. Sometimes people will say, you know, get like a star farmer, you know, a particular farmer who has really adopted, and let the others learn from them. It does not necessarily work, you know. So you have to go in there and try to understand the culture. Try to learn the do's and don'ts. At the time I went also, it was a time when this whole focus on women was there. That's the women who produce food in Africa. Let's support the women. But I realized sometimes you can support women to their own detriment. Because, you know, you meet them wherever they are, you teach them, you need to do this, they go back home, and at the end of the day, they don't even have land to cultivate, or you have this, their husbands, you know, will say, look, it's you who was taught me, I wasn't taught, and you go and find your own land where you can do all these practices. And so as time has gone on, I just realized for me, in my own community and the communities I try to get to, I take a family approach. I take a family approach. There are things you can discuss with them together as husband and wife, or as men and women. And there are things you can discuss with women only. And there are things you can discuss with men only. And there are things you can get a sex to discuss with their own sex. No. And all that takes time to understand. So really, you just need to be sensitive, to be respectful, and there are things that you may not change, but there are things that you can pull people to your side to change by respecting what they already do. So you just have to say, look, we know this is what you do, but at the end of the day, I think we need to do ABCD. So, you know, and over time, you know, it took me like, it was over 10 years, someone came and told me, oh, what did you do in this community? I said, what do you mean? But you got them to change. I said, what do you mean I did change? Yeah, so it's possible. It's possible, yeah. Yeah, it takes time. It takes respect. It takes an appreciation of our people. It takes making friends, you know, and just understanding what's going on. And for them to know that truly you are there to be of help. You are there to be of help. You are not there just to collect data, to go off, publish, and they have no idea what is going on. And then they have other needs as well. You know, I've been involved in research projects where in the middle of a 5-year research project, famine hits and people have absolutely no food. You can't go collecting data from them and you are leaving them hungry just because you don't have money. So then I think in that particular case, we went out of our way and we went to the particular donor and we say we have to do something. Even during COVID, in Western Kenya, in my project, we had a situation where people didn't have food. But fortunately, whoever was funding our project at that time donated a good amount of money, and then we worked with the government to identify the targets, you know, the vulnerable people. And we were involved in it, and we were going door to door. My people were going door to door distributing this food. Yeah, so you just have to be a bit flexible, but most importantly, you have to be sensitive, because when people are hungry, they are hungry. I mean, there's nothing you can get out of them, and it won't be even pleasant for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruth. Appreciate that answer. Okay, some other questions from our chat here. This one's directed at Dr. Kelly. You gave a great example of how the world converged and eradicated, not eradicated polio with your example before. Why do you think alleviating hunger is so hard to attain? And that's a very challenging question, but if you have a take on that, would love to hear that.
Well, there's actually some similarities between medicine and agriculture. From an ecological perspective, the agricultural research is studying organisms that are lower on the food chain than humans. And medical research, at least with respect to infectious diseases, is organisms that are higher on the food chain. So they're both applied biological sciences, just a different place on the food chain. I think I may not have answered your question though, Jennifer.
Okay. Um,
Yeah. So you said, why is it so difficult to eradicate hunger?
That's a very difficult question, but wanted to
Yeah,
pose
it
it
is
that's in our chat.
that is a complicated question. The there are different causes of food security, including technical causes, socioeconomic causes. Some of the people who are insecure right now, who are food insecure, it's related to conflict. But in some cases, that conflict might ultimately be related to other factors. So drought is associated with increased conflict in some parts of the world, for example, via its effects on agriculture. So there are complex effects of foods there are food insecurity has complex causes, including poverty, conflict, an overemphasis on some Western crops like wheat and maize that don't have the nutritional value or the adaptation that some of the local crops do. So there's a lot of different factors. No one approach is gonna solve food security. What we're aiming to do at Grow Further is not to like wipe out poverty or do something like that. What we're aiming to do is to essentially punch above our weight. And that is something that agricultural research has a history of doing. There was a study back in the U.S. Department of Agriculture did a study back in 1915, and the USDA economists found that there was a $500 return to society. Or actually, they found there was a $1,000 return to society for every $1 invested in agricultural research. And the Secretary of Agriculture would not allow this study to be released to Congress. He told the economists who wrote it, cut it down to $500 because that's all that Congress is going to believe. So there's there's a long. I mean, the Green Revolution was basically done on a shoestring budget. There's a long history of agricultural research and innovation having great returns to society in a lot of different levels of food security. Not just about having enough calories, but also getting enough nutrition, having stable food supplies in the face of changes in weather and climate, promoting national security, promoting health for vulnerable populations, improving farmers' income, because that can be as important as the nutritional content of the crops themselves. Farmers typically don't grow everything that they eat. So if you can improve their income, then that gives them the ability to buy nutritious foods that might not be well adapted to grow on their own farm. So that's a bit of a long-winded answer.
No, that was great. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate that. I have a more technical question here. I know we touched on regenerative agriculture a little bit in this session, and it looks like folks are looking for a bit more in the questions. There is a question around the difference between agroecology and regenerative agriculture. And so I don't know if either one of you want to touch on that or take that question, but let's open it up to something a bit more technical this time.
Maybe Peter can talk about agroecology. For me, regenerative agriculture, the way I've understood it, and coming in the wake of all these climate challenges, is more or less what used to be done a long time ago. You know, just make sure that you balance your use of the soils, the cropping systems, you are going to do it. So it talks about, preserving the soil, making sure it also rests, so you leave it fallow to rest, and then you do intercropping. And when you do intercropping, you have crops which fix nitrogen in the soil. At the same time, you have crops which, the grains, for example, which need that nitrogen in order to grow. You now begin to bring in the issue of fruits and vegetables. Now we talk about nutrition, so regenerative just means that whatever you do, make sure you balance your cropping system so that you maintain the health of that soil that you need to keep growing all the time. And as you do so, you are also taking care of the pests. You don't have to use all these very hard chemical fertilizers. You are environment conscious. It's like almost like organic growing. And I normally say that this is what Africans used to do anyway all the time. We just have a word now calling it regenerative. And that way you also preserve the moisture in the soil. So you never end up with this very hard drought, very hard soils where absolutely nothing can grow. Yeah, but you have many different people trying to also add different things to it. But essentially, that's in the wake of climate change and climate impacts, which are negative. That's what we're trying to do with regenerative agriculture.
Now, follow up to that, I think this is quite interesting. It sounds like I have a question. Regenerative agriculture is something that it's not new, right? This is something that, and so can either of you comment on why this resurgence has happened? Why now this is a buzzword? And yeah, we've been talking about this for a while, as you alluded to Ruth, and so. Why now? Why are we all hyper-focused on this in the current?
Isn't it because each time, we run into serious problems, we have to come up with some buzzwords, Yeah, for a while there was what we called orphan crops, and we were choosing all these African crops. We were calling them orphan crops, and they say, why are they orphan? Just because we didn't do research on them. We didn't do research on the bambara nut that you people are talking about. We didn't do research on finger millet and the other millets. We didn't do research on these tubers, and we had gone to the west to seek these crops and practice monocropping, which has really messed up the soils and the food systems. So now, and for me, over the years, as I've spoken, it's just been like, the African food system was the best food system. The way we grew, my grandmother grew her foods, the way she tilled her soil, the way she managed everything was the best way to go. Now, so when we come now in the modern language, we have to find some modern buzzword. Yeah, modern buzzword, so unfortunately, that's what I think. But it's clearly it's not new. Clearly, it's not new. Regenerative agriculture, no.
Thank you, Dr. Ruth. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I would add that it's more than it's more than a buzzword. I mean, regenerative agriculture is a real movement around the world. Organic agriculture is relatively small, but in some countries, such as the United States, the number of farmers adopting reduced tillage practices and other regenerative practices is very large. It's even standard in some states for some crops. So there's been some significant progress in this area, but one thing that needs to be done is to expand things like reduced tillage and building soil organic matter from the United States and a few other places, and adapt those systems to other parts of the world to create healthy soils elsewhere.
Thank you. I'm just going to segue here because we're on the topic of regenerative agriculture. And one of our audience members is interested in each of the panelists' opinions about balancing the long-term benefits of regenerative agriculture with productivity and the market opportunities of more intensive agriculture.
Okay, I can take that question.
Sure, please. Please do. Thank you.
So as far as market opportunities are concerned, market opportunities are about the value of the crop, not only about the productivity of the crop. The major crops, the maize, the wheat, the rice, things like that, the prices are very low on these things, and it's not easy to make a living on them as a smallholder farmer with 1 acre or something like that in a family. So some of these neglected and underutilized crops, or orphan crops, or whatever you want to call them, actually fetch a high price in the market, even if the productivity is not as high. And then in the longer term, if you build a healthy soil, you get better productivity. There can be a cost in the short term to productivity of adopting regenerative practices, and that's where there may be a need for financing to help farmers make that transition. But it's not always the case by any means. In many cases, regenerative agricultural practices can be adopted without any hit to yields, and then have an even better effect on the yields and the value in the long term.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to segue away from that topic and bring it to this question here. Agricultural research is great, but what initiatives do you have to make agricultural research useful to end users like farmers? And Peter, you probably want to touch on this, with some of the projects that Grow Further is funding and how you see
Sure.
the end.
I mean, the number one criterion that we look at in our grant applications is whether farmers are actually going to use it, and if so, how many. And that means not only that means a couple things. One is that it should be relevant over a relatively wide area. And agriculture happens within an ecological context. So as well as a socioeconomic context. So what works on one side of the hill may not work on the other side of the hill, but what we're looking for is a technology that'll work on one side of the hill, and it'll also work on that same side of the hill in a million other locations. So we select projects that have potential to actually get adopted at scale. And part of the process for doing that is engaging farmers in the work. And I talked about the participatory plant breeding project in Ghana. Another example of this is a project we're doing in Tanzania, developing a smartphone app to use artificial intelligence to early identify crop diseases. And one of the issues with this app, obviously, is that lots of farmers in Tanzania don't own a smartphone. So we did some engagement with farmers to figure out what's the best way to reach farmers who don't own a smartphone. Should we rely on them sharing a smartphone with their friends? Well, they said, our friends don't like to share their smartphone with us. Or should we rely on an agricultural extension agent? Well, there's not enough agricultural extension agents to provide the level of service that one might hope. So the best solution seems to be to work through farmer cooperatives in that case. But the larger principle is that engaging farmers is a really important part of ensuring that a project gets adopted at scale. as well as selecting the projects up front with that as a key criterion. Another thing that we're working on is we're looking to build a program in India that engages the Indian diaspora in this work. So that's another type of engagement that is on the horizon.
Thank you, Peter. I have a question for Dr. Oniang'o from one of our guests here. It looks like they want you to share your soybean growing story again that was successful. So you touched on soybeans earlier in our discussion. Could you share what was successful about that project?
That project actually meant the main objective was for us to address soil health by planting a legume that could fix nitrogen, and that was soybean. At that time, right now we know better that we could even have used bambara nut, but that was soybean at that time. And in Western Kenya, there's a dish they like very much, which is a maize beans, ordinary bean dish. So now, once we had the soybeans, we said, okay, you have them. They were not sure whether it had improved the soil until later, season 2. So you go to farmers and now they start telling you, look, you can just see we have harvested this from the piece of land where we planted soybeans. Now we have harvested maize in a big way. So it has improved our soil health. Now say, okay, can we now teach you how to use the soybean? Can you replace the beans you normally use with the soybean? And they tried it and they say, no, it doesn't taste good. It takes too long. It takes a lot of firewood. We don't have that fuel. It's not good. So now we started to collect the soybean. We as the NGO now started to collect the soybean and to look for market, especially from those people who are preparing animal feeds, using the soybeans. But now, as time went on, at some stage, they started to find their own ways of using this soybean and making it children's snacks or snacks which they could actually sell and get some money. So they just had their own dishes now with the soybean. They started to blend the soy flour after we had taught them how to prepare the soybean before they add into ordinary flour to make different dishes, that they eat locally, adding the soybean, to make it more nutritious. Children's food, porridge and so on. So right now, when you go to Western Kenya, where we have been, it has now been actually accepted. But it all started with, look, if it can improve our soils and give us a better yield of maize, corn, then it must be good, let's then try eating it, that is, it's just been like a journey, one could write a story about it, so you can't just imagine that they'll accept it right away. But now they have found their own way of processing it, blending it in their foods, in their dishes, to a point where they can actually accept those dishes, And I saw also a question where someone was saying that they tried soybean in Kenya and they didn't. There are so many little projects going on in different parts of Africa that sometimes you don't even know a project exists. So that sharing of information there actually becomes very difficult. And that's where agricultural research, what Peter is hammering on. When you do the research yourself and you collect data in a systematic way, you can now package it and you can share it. And right now, I think sharing of information is a lot easier. So one can know what is going on where in a particular country. But also, whenever you go to a country, if you come to Kenya, for example, and you want to know what's going on, you don't just stay at the national level, at the agricultural level in Nairobi, office in Nairobi. You actually now go to counties. So we have counties. Unfortunately, our counties, they all put together organizations who are doing research NGOs, companies, and they all have one forum. So you just go to their office and you say, I just want to know what is going on here and who is working on what project. I think since we had that, decentralization of programs and offices in Kenya, it has made it a lot easier to know who is doing what where. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ruth. I'm seeing some very positive comments here in the chat. People are interested in the mission of Grow Further, and that's wonderful. Thank you all for putting in some of those comments. And they're very happy with our panelists and some of your answers. So wanted to note that. But why hasn't an initiative like Grow Further been done before? And that's a question, and we'll start with you, Peter. Why is this a bit unique?
Well, the world is filled with opportunities, and I mean, any successful business person will ask themselves the same question: why did nobody else do this? So that's the sort of general answer. I think a more specific answer is that Grow Further really requires bringing together people who have not in the past worked together or thought in quite the same ways. So there's a high awareness of food insecurity in developing countries, in certain populations, and walks of life. There's a very strong philanthropic tradition in the United States. The United States is not only a wealthy country, but also I believe the second most generous, charitably speaking, as a percentage of GNP after Burma. And finding people who both understand the importance of food security innovation and think about it in a charitable context, that's the challenge. And the easy thing to do is to just write a grant application to the U.S. government program, and they have a very specific idea, write a grant application to the major agencies that have funded things like it before. But what we're looking to do is more long-term than that. That in other sectors, individuals in the United States outgive foundations by a 5-to-1 ratio, and are basically not involved at all in agricultural research, even though they are involved in other closely related things like medical research, like shorter-term solutions to food security. So there's a huge opportunity here to bring together different ways of thinking. And I mean, this was a challenge for me too. I was trained as an agricultural and development economist with an interdisciplinary background in agricultural science, but that did not directly prepare me to be a nonprofit manager. I had to kind of learn that as a second career. So there's a lot of different skill sets. A lot of different people from different walks of life need to come together and start thinking the same, start thinking along the same lines as each other, in order to make something like this happen.
Absolutely, thank you. Well, we hope more people will join the movement. I have had the pleasure of being a part of this, and it's been wonderful. So we are almost at time, and so I didn't know, Dr. Oniang'o, if you wanted to offer any last wrap-up comments from our discussion today before we conclude.
Thank you, Jennifer. You should have asked me what attracted me to Grow Further,
Yes, well, that actually is a good story. Can you tell it?
Yeah. No, for me, Grow Further is just the new kid on the block, and over time, I'd even stopped attending some of these meetings because for me, it's like, didn't I hear that before? Haven't I seen that before? Wasn't it said 20 years ago? And then I came across Peter and what he was trying to do, and he took time. He really took time to understand. And you now see him in Africa going around. He's there in the villages. He's with the farmers. He's with academics and so on. And we have good people all over this world, who want to do some good. We have many, many people who want to do good. But it's the issue of who do you trust? How do you find your connection? Where do you go? There are problems everywhere. But I just want to encourage anyone that you pick your own issue you are interested in. Pick your own issue you're interested in, whether it's child feeding, whether it is educating a child, whether it's going to see women in a village, whether it is what, and I normally say for you people from the US or from the North, once you land on the African continent, it just changes you completely. It just changes you completely. And many of us have been educated in your countries. And so the best we can do is just, welcome you and give you this kind of experience, especially in Africa. I'm sure India is the same and South America is the same. There are issues. There are different kinds of problems everywhere. But as far as this food issue is concerned, as far as agricultural issues are concerned, we just need to learn from each other by being innovative and by doing research. So I just felt that a Grow Further decided to listen, and they decided to start. Starting was the most difficult thing. I think once you start, and then started to rally people around this idea. And I remember at the World Food Prize in Des Moines, Iowa, I was telling you, in your first event, even if nobody comes, it's okay. Soon they'll start to follow, they'll listen to the message, and there are a lot of people out there who want to do good. And I just want to encourage especially young people who find it a lot easier to travel during these difficult times. I now see many Caucasians in Kenya, riding bicycles or motorbikes, and so on. You don't have to just go and see animals only, but you can do some good, and it really makes you good. I mean, you feel good about it yourself when you have done that. Yeah, so it's just a question of forging these friendships and doing this and listening to people and not having your own ideas. And actually, when you decide to listen to people, that very original idea you had, you'll find it being accepted. You'll find it going forward because already you forge a friendship. And they'll ask you, but what do you think I should do? And you say, I think maybe you should do it this way. You commend them for their own good ideas. And you say, but I think I've seen it, this works somewhere. I think we can do it this way. So it's a question of working together, respecting each other to be able to solve a problem. So I saw a question on giving farmers free things. I mean, who are farmers? Farmers are people. Farmers are human beings. I don't know what the free things are. Nothing in this world is ever forever free at all. Even when I go and work with my own farmers and I'm giving them samples of seed or what to do, it's not free. It's not free at all. I'm doing it because I have an interest in it. And the same farmer, it's a win-win situation. The farmer benefits and I benefit as well. I can also collect data, and even as I'm collecting data, what is in there for this farmer? So there's nothing for free. I think it's a question of respecting each other and appreciating and just knowing that all of us are sensitive, and that at the end of the day, we can all benefit from these kinds of interactions. And I think they are very, very healthy interactions. So I just want to congratulate you as Grow Father, and hope that you'll rally more people around you, and that you can continue to impact in whatever way you can. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Oniang'o, for that beautiful answer. We appreciate you so much. Peter, would you like to wrap up or conclude with any last words today before I kind of wrap up our session?
Okay, well, I'd just like to thank Dr. Ruth Oniang'o for participating in this session, and also for traveling a long way to the Borlaug Dialogue to be part of our panel last year, and for all the advice that you've given us over the years as a member of our advisory committee, and just the inspiration. Your work starting organizations and taking initiatives has inspired us to take similar initiatives. So thank you so much, Ruth, and thank you to the attendees who submitted actually far more questions than we had time for. We've had kind of a an excessive outpouring of interest in this organization on some level. We had more questions today than we could get to. We had 700 grant applications, which was far more than we could fund right away. But as we grow this movement, we can obviously fund more of those. And on a more technical level, we are aware that if a grant program is overly competitive, it's not making the best use of the applicant's time. So in future grant rounds, we will be sensitive to that and make sure that the number of applications, particularly the number of full applications in relation to the number of concept notes, is reasonable in relation to the number of grants that we intend to pay out within a short period of time. So for those of you on the call who are grant applicants, we are aware of this issue, and we're going to take it very seriously in the next round. So again, thank you everyone for participating in this call.
Well, thank you, Peter. Well, we're at time, but I wanted to give a special thanks for all of you who spent your morning, evening, afternoon with us. Thank you again, Dr. Oniang'o, for being our special guest today and for sharing all of your expertise. I love hearing you speak. And thank you, Dr. Kelly, for your thoughts and ideas as well. And if you are interested in learning more about the work of Grow Further or getting involved, we have many opportunities to do so. We know that it takes many stakeholders to make a real impact in this space, and we want to engage you. So if you're looking to contribute as an individual or a student and become a donor member, or as an organization or corporation looking to partner or explore that, or if you're interested in volunteering or are interested in our grants, we want to hear from you. So there are many ways of engaging with us. We will be doing a follow-up email to this event for all attendees that give you different ways that you can engage with our organization. So be on the lookout for that. And thank you again for your time. And we wish you a great rest of your week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Yes, yeah.
Or evening, Ruth.
Yes, yeah. Enjoy your snow.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you. Have a great evening, Ruth.
Okay. Bye. Bye, Equal. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Dr. Ruth. I'm going to stick
Yes.
around a bit because just to do some housekeeping in the Zoom. So you guys can leave and just leave me in here for a minute. I have to copy some questions and things that I want to save. But thank you so much.
Okay,
Dr.
so
Ruth.
should
That
we
was amazing.
log off of the Zoom, Equan?
You can exit and leave, but leave me in here.
Okay.
Just don't
Okay.
close it.
Maybe it would be best if I stay on. I'm a little worried that it might get cut off if I
Okay.
if I
It's
exit.
gonna
So
take me a couple
it
minutes.
should be okay because you're a co-host, but just to be on the safe side,
Yeah.
it's probably better for me to stay on.
I'm almost done. I was just trying to copy some.
Thank you
Yeah,
again, Ruth.
just copy the questions for future reference.
Yes.
Yeah.
This was great. I think
Okay,
you guys
how do
did
we,
a good
well, now
job.
that we're on.
Yeah, let me shut off the recording.
Okay, oh.
No, that's fine. We can always